Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Last Man Standing. And on this week's episode, we're going to take you through what AEW has been up to in 2020.
That's right, guys. This is the first part where we're going to take you through the rivalries that have been taking place on AEW Dynamite, which are leading up to their first pay per view of the decade, Revolution. Hey guys, we continue AEW's 2020 journey with the Dark Order, and this storyline really kicked into overdrive. So, Evil Uno and Stu Grayson were both recruiting heavily for the Dark Order, and they were doing so through vignettes and videos, which basically stated that if you're tired of losing and if you want to go get back to winning ways, you can do so by joining the Dark Order. And they further preached that there's strength in numbers. And this culminated into their motto, basically, which stated that you should open your mind, you should stop losing all the time, you should bring in new order into your life, and you should join the Dark Order. And this was clearly a brainwashing tactic, but it seemed to have worked because they ended up signing and recruiting their first two members, these two jobbers in AEW, Alex Reynolds and John Silver. And they weren't the only people who were interested, because other superstars in the AEW roster like Brandon Cutler and Michael Nakazawa both expressed curiosity in joining the Dark Order because they themselves were going through a losing streak in AEW. And while this was happening, we saw Evil Uno talking to some mysterious dude who was off camera and had a modulated voice, and he was giving him some sort of progress report. And Evil Uno referred to him as the Exalted One. And it was very clear from that moment on that the Exalted One was the leader of the Dark Order, and he was the one pulling all the strings for that organization. He was like this mastermind trying to build a cult, which was the Dark Order. And while Evil Uno explained his recruits such as Brandon Cutler and Michael Nakazawa, he also said that we can get to Kenny Omega through Michael Nakazawa, and that they can target Adam Hangman Page from the Elite, because according to them he was the weakest member of the Elite, and he was having a turbulent time with the Elite as well. And this is all a part of the Exalted One's master plan, which was basically to cast a doubt over the Elite and to show the world that they were never more powerful than the Dark Order. Then we saw Dark Order completely shift their focus to recruiting Christopher Daniels from SCU, and they did so by sending him a mask. But unfortunately, Christopher Daniels' tag team partner Frankie Kazarian and Scorpio Sky from SCU found this mask in his bag, and it immediately cast a doubt in their minds of Christopher Daniels' loyalties, and they couldn't trust him anymore. And I don't blame them, because Christopher Daniels was having a torrid time in AEW at the time, and the whole world also thought, and even we thought, that he was going to join the Dark Order. So I don't blame them. But what it did was set up this match perfectly between SCU and Dark Order at Revolution, and it was going to be really interesting because we don't know what's going to happen with Christopher Daniels, and we don't know the identity of this mysterious Exalted One, so it was just going to be a really interesting one to watch.
And moving on to the AEW's women's division, on the very first episode of the new decade, we saw Riho defending her AEW Women's Championship in a fatal 4-way match against Dr. Britt Baker, Nyla Rose, and Hikaru Shida. And despite his overwhelming odds, Riho came out on top and retained her AEW Women's Championship. And this was a fact that Dr. Britt Baker couldn't bear. She couldn't bear the fact that she couldn't win the title, and she subsequently turned heel because she truly believes that she's the face of the women's division, since she was the very first woman signed by AEW. She would then go on to have a very interesting mini feud with Tony Schiavone, which is one of the funniest things to watch on AEW's television. But on the flip side of that, the native beast, Nyla Rose, was hell bent on getting that women's championship from Riho. She would attack her and put her through a table, and she subsequently got her one-on-one shot against Riho, which she took. She absolutely dismantled the champion and became the very first transgender to hold the AEW Women's Championship, which is just amazing. And she was running roughshod on the rest of the women in AEW, and she needed a challenger for Revolution. And that's when the galaxy's greatest alien, Chris Statlander, stepped up and went on to challenge Nyla Rose for the title. If you don't know Chris Statlander, she's one of the most up and coming and one of the most dynamic performers in AEW, and it really feels like she has a shot at taking that women's championship from Nyla Rose at Revolution.
And we move on to the next storyline and we focus on Pac. And this guy basically wanted his rubber match with Kenny Omega. As you recall, he had beaten him at All Out and then subsequently lost to Kenny Omega at AEW Dynamite. And he wanted a rubber match with Kenny to determine who would be, the overall winner in this series. And for some reason, Kenny Omega was not granting him this match. And Pac decided to take things in his own hands and started beating the shit out of his best friend Michael Nakazawa to entice Kenny, and then even threatened to go after Riho, who was the AEW Women's Champion, and she is really close to Kenny as well, which is really ridiculous. And that's when finally Kenny decided that okay, no, he will give him this rubber match, and decided, and they both mutually accepted that it would be an Iron Man match, a 30-minute Iron Man match. And if, for those of you who don't know what an Iron Man match is, it's a match with a time limit, in this case 30 minutes, to see whoever gets the most pinfalls or submissions within those 30 minutes. And as luck would have it for Pac, he didn't have any because he lost. And Kenny came out on top and won this rubber match, which basically pissed the fuck out of my bad. It pissed him off so bad that he went into an interview with Tony Schiavone. Schiavone was just taking the piss out of Pac for some reason, and Pac was just like, "Get off my back!" He was so pissed off, and all of a sudden we see freshly squeezed Orange Cassidy come out of from the back. And I think, in all honesty, he was just trying to cheer up Pac. He was trying to give him a good time, but Pac was just not having it, and he literally beat the pulp out of freshly squeezed Orange Cassidy, pun intended. And that's where this rivalry was born between Pac and Orange Cassidy, and they would go head to head against each other at Revolution. And this was in fact going to be Orange Cassidy's first match of AEW, so a really interesting one to watch, and can't wait.
And shifting gears to another story that was really picking up steam was between Darby Allin and Sammy Guevara. As you know, Darby Allin has been a thorn in the Inner Circle side for quite some time now. It started off when he went to challenge Chris Jericho for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship in a Philadelphia street match, and he actually lost that match thanks to Jake Hager. But that didn't deter Darby Allin from getting any revenge, because he subsequently agreed to team up with Jon Moxley to take on the Inner Circle, Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara in a tag team match. But unfortunately for him, the Inner Circle took out Jon Moxley before the match even began, and he was in a handicap match against Jericho and Sammy. When, to his credit, he gave them a great fight, almost picked up the victory, but came up short once again. But this didn't deter him at all. He actually came back to team with Private Party to take on Proud and Powerful and Chris Jericho in a 6-man tag team match. But unfortunately, yet again, Darby Allin and Private Party lost, and his luck would go from bad to worse because the Inner Circle laid down a vicious beatdown on him. And it got even worse because Sammy Guevara would take his skateboard and jam it into Darby Allin's throat, putting him on the injured list for the next couple of weeks. And Darby Allin was really looking for revenge. He was looking to right the wrongs, and he really wanted a piece of Sammy Guevara, and subsequently made his return a few weeks later and went straight after Sammy Guevara and got his one-on-one match at Revolution. And I truly feel that this is going to be a great match. There's such animosity between these two young athletes, and I truly believe that these two guys are the pillars of AEW, and this is going to be a future AEW World Heavyweight Championship match.
I just don't see it.
And moving on to one of the most personal rivalries unfolding on Dynamite was between Cody Rhodes and MJF. As you guys would recall, on Full Gear, MJF threw in the towel, costing Cody Rhodes a shot at the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. And not only that, he would subsequently betray him by giving him a low blow and leaving him in a pool of his own blood. And now Cody Rhodes was hell-bent on getting his hands on MJF and would stop at nothing. He came out and he offered him his watch. He offered him his car. He offered him $50,000 and asked MJF to name his price so that he could have that match with MJF. And subsequently, MJF answered the call and laid out 3 stipulations that Cody Rhodes needed to fulfill in order to get that match. The first stipulation was that Cody Rhodes couldn't touch MJF till their pay-per-view Revolution. The second one was that he would give 10 lashes to Cody Rhodes on live television. He basically wanted to whip him. And the last but not least, Cody Rhodes had to defeat Wardlow in a steel cage match. And it was clear that there is no stake that's too high for Cody Rhodes, as he survived all three stipulations. He didn't touch MJF till Revolution. He took 10 lashes like a man, and one of the most painful things I've ever had to watch on live television. And last but not least, he defeated Wardlow by jumping off a 15-foot high steel cage and giving him an insane moonsault, and defeated Wardlow and would finally get his match with MJF. And I cannot wait to see this personal issue boil over at Revolution. This match is going to have fireworks, and I can't wait to see this all unfold at Revolution.
And that concludes the first part of our road to Revolution, guys. And we've discussed all the rivalries building towards Revolution, and the ones that are left are Dustin Rhodes facing Jake Hager. We got the tag team titles match between the Elite, between Hangman Page and Kenny Omega, the current champions, against the Young Bucks, who are so close. There's so much history there. It's going to be interesting to watch what goes down. And also we've got the Le Champion in action for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship against John Moxley, and that's going to be a really interesting one as well, so you don't want to miss it.
And we would like to thank our foreign correspondent Ursula for helping us out with this video and for helping us out with our YouTube channel. Thanks, Urs.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the subscribe button.
And to know everything about All Elite Wrestling, you know who to call. We're the last man standing, and we'll see you.